we get stuck in our own heads on certain ways to do things. But the natural curiosity and creativity is you've got to leave some of those old habits at the door and just try new things and see what works.
Hey nerds, Monica here. Welcome to the Data Podcast for Nerds, where we get to talk to amazing professionals and ask them all about how they're using data to solve the world's problems. We're highlighting skills that data professionals use on a daily basis. Plus, we always include some fun bits because we're all nerds here and we love to have fun. So thank you for tuning in, and if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. And as always, folks, happy learning. So today with us, we have Tom Hinkle. How are you doing today, Tom?
Awesome. Yeah.
Very good. We have a special nerd out fun bits section, and we even wore cool shirts today. We're going to be talking about gamification. So we got our game shirts on. We're ready to go, ready to talk about this. But before we do, we typically start off our episodes by understanding people's origin stories. So, Tom, please let us know about your background and how you got to where you are today in your career.
So many years ago, my family was living in Virginia, and we got in a big covered wagon trailer, and we tried to go all the way across country on the Oregon Trail. No, I'm just kidding. Had to add that in as one of the first video games I played. So I've been a data and analytics professional for about 20 years. I really like video games. I was in college. I was a computer science major, and it was really interesting. One of the things that I would have pivoted on is in my studies, you could choose a specialty, MIS or operating systems or databases or graphics. Well, I'll just go ahead and say it was 1992 when I graduated. I took the first couple of computer graphics classes, loved them. But at the time, there was like one Pixar movie and only nerds were playing video games. So I was like, there's no future in computer graphics. I'm going to go safe and go databases. Mother of all miscalculations ever. And I would have loved it too. So that's my little story. And I've always liked playing games. And there's a lot of different aspects to it. But again, in my career, I kind of landed in the financial sector, ended up doing a lot of dashboarding and reporting and analysis. And it's really interesting because now there's all this new terminology for all this stuff that a lot of people have been doing for 20 or 30 years. We just call it new things. So that's kind of where I am. And I love making dashboards. I love teaching people. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today is, there's a lot of aspects to video games that I think can really be portable into data disciplines too. So I'll pause there, and that'll be my little intro.
Awesome. Yeah, let's just head right into the fun bits because I think we have a lot to share with this whole gamification idea. Not that it's a new idea, but I do think that it's really fun to share and nerd out on this topic.
Absolutely.
Hey nerd, are you looking for a career in data? I would absolutely love to help you out. I just launched a data career strategy program that helps folks break into data without breaking anything. I provided a link in the show notes if you want to learn more information about it. Now, back to the fun bits. So to introduce gamification, I was doing some research and actually saw that the term itself was coined in 2003. So again, not a new thing. It's been around for over 20 years, but I think it's really important to share like how it kind of like boosts people's motivations for getting things done, especially like if they're the, quote unquote boring things. If you put a little fun spin on it, they like to focus on that more.
Oh yeah. And achievement too. I think there's gonna be a lot of things where they'll take us off on a lot of tangents, but I'm just gonna start off by talking about your game shirt today, Donkey Kong.
Yes.
Yeah, that adds into the fun aspect is there too, but also the desire to achieve something and meet a goal. And looking at that Donkey Kong, I can remember the first time I dropped a quarter in there and got hit by a barrel by the time I hit the first girder. But the neat thing about games is that there's no real penalty for failing when you're playing a video game. When they have that expression, there's no, this expression in general, there's no losing, there's only winning or learning. That's the epitome of video games. So when I drop that first quarter and I run to the end of the girder and get hit by a barrel, well, right away I've learned something. Pause a little bit, let that thing go past you, and then jump over it. So I think that's another really interesting aspect of gamification is that it adds that achievement to it, and we don't get penalized for trying things and making mistakes and going up there. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. I picked this specific shirt because it was one of my first games. Fun fact, actually had one of these arcade cabinets in my house. Like I grew up with this in my house. I didn't have to use actual quarters though, because I can open it up and just like press the button.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But still, to your point, yeah, you learn so quickly as well, especially when you first start off, because with any learning, you're going to fail really fast. So you're trying new things, you fail, but you learn from that failure, and then get over those barrels and kind of set up kind of a strategy. That's how I thought of it. It's like,
Oh
okay,
yeah,
if you
totally.
pause for 5
100%.
seconds here, then you can let it go by and then jump over here. And then so by the end of you mastering level 1 or whatever, you kind of got in the mode of knowing like how to master it.
Oh yeah, yeah. And another thing I think is important in video games. We're gonna stay on Donkey Kong for a half hour here, but the um the goal and the theme is very explicit. You know what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get to the end, run to the end, and you're just constantly learning and figuring out how to go all the way up there. And in the game, it doesn't matter if it took you 5 games or 25 to learn how to master that level. Once you got it, that's the goal: is finishing the level, not necessarily doing it in 1 or 2 times. Um, and I think that petrifies people in the data space. Especially people who are new to analytics and dashboarding. They want to make just the perfect dashboard the first time and it'd be beautiful and solve all the problems. And and so they're just afraid to put things out there. But the other thing about that is there's more than one right answer. You were talking about finishing the level and finally getting there. Let me ask you if you did this. Once you finished the level and got to the exit and climbed up that last ladder, next time you played, did you try to get more points? Like, how can I grab
Absolutely.
that hammer and start smashing the fireballs now? Like, how can I do better than I did before? Knowing that I can complete it, let me just take it to the next level and do that. So,
Yep.
yeah.
I read a statistic. It was the Tech Report 2023 that said 90% of employees actually admit to being more productive if what they're doing has gamification applied to it. That was actually really surprising to me. 90%. That's awesome.
Well, it makes it more fun. It makes it a challenge and a learning experience too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so what are some of the other things you think go along with gamification?
Yeah, so there's something that I learned when I was in the security space. It was something from BJ Fogg called the behavior design. Have you heard of this?
I don't think I have. And I'm curious if is DJ Fog like a club DJ or
BJ.
oh BJ Fog? Okay.
Yes. Oh, that would be a really fun name. Yes. So he has a book called Tiny Habits. And when I was in one of my security roles, he actually came into our team and gave us like a formal training, basically applying it to how can we gamify or apply this behavior design to security awareness training. Because like you probably have taken your security awareness training at work, and you know that people just like click through it really fast, not paying attention to it. But the stuff that's in that training is so important to be able to protect the data within the company, right? But I think it was like 25% of people think that it's not engaging, or that it is engaging. So super very low. And so we were trying to understand this behavior design and make, more people be more engaged in this security awareness training. And so with this behavior design, it basically just talks about motivation and the ability of somebody doing a thing. And if something's really hard to do, then you have to have a really, really high level of motivation to do something. But if you make it really, really easy for someone, like gamifying it, making it very interesting, then that motivation kind of lowers and you can kind of just like have fun with it and not it being such a serious thing.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And you were talking about all that training. I work in the finance sector right now, and I have for a long time. So we've just done a bunch of our regulatory trainings and have more. And one thing, it's still not super interesting yet because at least the trainings I've seen haven't totally got into gamification. But I have seen a couple aspects, and one of them is, it used to be you read this and then just answer the questions. But now I think some of these trainings are phrasing the questions more as a scenario and a role play and a what would you do sort of thing. And that makes it just enough more interesting to try to figure out what the right answer is. Now, I will say some of the ones I've had, the right and wrong answers sometimes are pretty ridiculous, and you could probably figure them out without even taking the test. Like, hey, you see somebody stealing something, should you A, go back to your desk and sit down and do nothing? B, help them move the product out the door that they're stealing? Or C, notify your manager and the theft hotline? Like, it's pretty easy, but it's still along the right path, making it a little more engaging. Like, hey, let me see if I can figure out the right answers instead of just spitting back up, a multiple choice. Here's the A, B, or C.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I've definitely taken those trainings before, and they are more engaging, but also they could be just really, really silly. I've taken some where they actually get some employees acting out some of the situations.
yeah,
Those
yeah.
ones to me were the best, but other people they were like, this is too silly. I can't even pay attention to it.
Yeah, totally. But it that kind of thing keeps people engaged a little bit. Um, Another thing I think about when I think about gamification is um, is our nature as people to want to collect things. A couple of years ago we had the NFT thing, which I didn't understand a digital product, but along those lines too. Um, I went to a mall around Christmas to get some Christmas presents, and I turned into this store, and I was just stunned. Have you heard of a Funko Pop?
Yes. Yeah, I have them right here.
Yeah. Oh, so it just blew me away. And I walked into the store. I'd never seen them before. And for those of you who can't quite see them, they're little. They're kind of like little action figures, and maybe in the same vein of Beanie Babies for many years ago. But when I walked in the store, I'm like, how are people buying this many? And I talked to the store owner. He's like, well, the company that makes them in different scarcities. So some of these are super common, they're not a big deal to get, and then you step up to extremely rare, like the company only made 10 of them all the way across. So these things have become collectibles, and that's something in our nature too. So when you play a game, like I've got my Galaga shirt on, every time I complete a stage, I get a little badge in the corner and it clicks off. Hey, I got this, I'm on the 6th level now. And I can see it. I can see that little reward, and I think um, that plays into data too. Like one of the ways data has been gamified, and there's so many debates on this, is certifications. Hey, I went out and watched a YouTube video, so I know the material. But you know what? I still want to go pay my $300 just to prove to people that I've learned that material. And now I've got this badge I can carry around and show people. And it's part of a representation of an accomplishment. So I think the collecting nature has a lot to do with this, the gamification too.
Yeah, that's really true. That's really true. I see a lot of companies like do the gamification and those badge earning things. The one that comes to mind is my Audible app. That's how I consume my books is with the Audible. And I just recently got a night owl badge because I started reading books before I go to bed to kind of like calm myself down. And so it's like, oh, you read so many hours at, the nighttime. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah, you get to get reinforced your good. It reinforces behavior, and it makes you want to use that app again.
Absolutely.
Similar to that audio thing. I've gone through 8 different music streaming services. I did Apple Music. YouTube Red was awesome. I still like that. What else we had? I had one called Tidal, and then there were several others. And then we got my kids bugged me enough to get Spotify, so we have that. And I was actually going somewhere with my son in December, and I don't know if you know about this. You probably do though, but it did like a year in review, similar to your audio books, like what songs you listen to the most, what genres, and what was the frequency. How often did you listen? And that was really cool and engaging. It kind of showed me, it tracked my progress too, which is another aspect of the game stuff.
Yep. Yep. One data related one that I can think of off the bat is Data Camp. They
Okay.
have a whole badge if you log in, how many days in a row they track that, and different point systems and whatnot. They have an app for your phone as well. So yeah, that's something that I've seen in the data space doing the gamification.
And we get like, so we like that. And with those little notifications, you get the little badge, but you get the little noise and the little pingle or the pop on your phone. That's our little dopamine. Like, ooh, I need to get that every day. What am I doing? And like, why do I care if I have that every day? But it's real. And I want to see. I'm still thinking about this a lot. How do we take all these things we're talking about, and really bring them to the data space? Like, how do we make it so much easier? There's a lot of people that I talk to that, we're in a community with people that are very savvy with data right now, but some of the problems are the people that we work with aren't that data savvy. So in my mind, if we can bring gamification to our dashboards or our data or our analysis, we might get some of those people that aren't data nerds like us to be more interested in it. I haven't figured that out yet, but that's kind of one of the reasons for our talk today. Like, how do we take that natural human tendency to want to play games and get those rewards and tie it into what we do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I see it a lot, at least in my space, where with that behavior design and applying that to the trainings. So if there were data related trainings out there, upskilling and whatnot, I see that the most used for that gamification space.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I want to talk about too is just the innate curiosity we all have to learn. And what was the guy's name whose videos we've talked about? Is it Mark Robert?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, if you look up Mark Robert, he's got some great videos on this. But he talked back about people have a curiosity to learn and figure things out, and he really focused on Super Mario. Well, what really clicked with me, I was watching my son play Call of Duty, and I would love to play that game. I think it looks super fun, but I really am not interested in getting killed by a bunch of 7-year-olds over and over and over again. So, I'm going to stick to my sites that bring me the classics back that I can still do. But when you play Call of Duty, for those of you who don't know, you drop down onto a huge virtual map, probably 50 or 100 square miles, digitally. And my son and his friends, they know where every single object on that map is, where the good little drops are that have the weapons, and where the places are to sit in a tower, or, where there's a vehicle they might want to drive. And it just hit me like, that's all learning. Like, but he wasn't told to learn that map. He didn't, have somebody reading down his throat. You've got to read this. You got to do this. The game itself was the reward of the learning. So he was able to learn that, and then in doing that, it gets better at the game. Most of the stuff we do in corporate America with reporting kind of has the same end goal. We make a report or dashboard. It's showing how a process is doing, or it's showing how a product is doing. And that information can only make us better in improving that process or selling more of the product or doing more cost savings. But I still haven't figured out, how do we put that nature of wanting to play games into an actual business type environment. Yeah. And now maybe I'm just really talking like I'm in fantasy land with that.
No, to your point, like with anything in learning new things, right? I think it does come down to that curiosity. It really is true curiosity, not just like I wonder about this. I'm talking about like deep dive. You're curious about actually finding the answer to something, and then you go and pursue and find that answer. That's one of the biggest things that I see that makes people successful in being able to learn new things.
Oh, yeah. I totally agree with that, being totally curious. And when you were saying that, I started going into my mind to some of the types of reports and dashboards I see. There's a lot of stuff out there that's really, really good at just reporting what we did. Hey, here's the number of things we sold. Here's the number of this. Here's the number of that. But to get that curiosity, how did product A do against product B? And then that next level is why. How did you get that one product to be better? So the more we could tap into that and like bring up that natural curiosity for people, that would just make the job so much easier. Yeah. If instead of us having to lead people all the time, they just look at it like, oh, awesome. You just taught me something new.
True.
True. So do you think that might be on us as analysts to figure out that whole piece and how to get them more curious?
I think we need to just highlight bringing back out our natural childhood instincts of being curious, asking the 5 whys, right? I forget who coined that 5 whys thing, but it's like, a child asks so many whys in a day, and it's like because they're so naturally curious. And then you get older and you kind of stop asking why. You get that imposter syndrome, kind of like you don't want to ask why because you should probably already know the answer, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you just start bringing out those childhood instincts, then you'll be able to accomplish a whole bunch more. So then circling back to another bonus of this gamification.
Yep. I agree with that for sure.
Do we have any other recommendations or encouragement for the listeners out there?
Oh, so one other thing I want to, you're talking about the children and how they approach games. I want to relate this story too, because it's with my younger daughter. She was 10 at the time. I introduced her to this game called Stardew Valley, which it's kind of one of these life games, probably similar to Animal Crossing or Harvest Moon was one. For those of you who've not played a farming game, it sounds like the most boring thing on the planet, but you will immediately be hooked because you get rewards when your plants come up, and then you go sell them in the town, and you can buy a truck, then you can go do different things. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So the big part of this game is how you get money and resources. You farm out certain vegetables and fruits during the season. And as an adult, it's interesting because you walk out in this canvas and there's a lot of trees and bushes and rocks in the way. So you come in, or at least I came in and started clearing the land, and I wanted to make rows and columns of my crops. And I put the corn here, the potatoes here, the broccoli here, the flowers here.
That sounds very financial of you.
Very ordered, very regimented. And then my 10-year-old didn't wreck any of the landscape. She planted a couple things over here, and then she went down to find another place. She planted 2 or 3 things more over here, and then some over here. And it drove me crazy. But I stopped myself because I'm like, it's so, my game was so boring. Like you said, it's very financial, it's very structured and ordered. Whereas she just was like, okay, I need to plant this stuff, but I don't need to wreck anything. Let me just put some stuff here and here. And I think that's another thing. We're kind of crossing over into kids versus gamification, but the kids have more of that curiosity and more of that pure intent on what they're doing. And I think a lot of my row and column mentality is indoctrinated from all the classes we take that are very structured. You must do things this way, and we're going to start all arrays with an index of 1 instead of 0, or whatever you or whichever way you want to do it. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to share that again too about how we get stuck in our own heads on certain ways to do things, but the natural curiosity and creativity is you got to leave some of those old habits at the door and just try new things and see
Mhm.
what works.
I like that. Definitely try new things, see what works, learn from our failures. That's how we get better.
Yeah, and the other like the last thing I'll say is that I got that idea of no penalties from that Mark Robert video where he talked about you could play a level in Super Mario 50 times and there's no real penalty at all. Whereas in school, if we're tested, a lot of my kids get an option to retake a test, but there's a penalty. Like if you retake it the first time, if you get a perfect score, well, you're only getting a 90 because that's the second time you took it. And then the third time, you can only get an 80 if you're perfect if you take it again. So I don't know how to solve that either because we do need to reward those people that get good scores the first time, but that penalty for failing can really stifle creativity and innovation too. Weren't you telling me how many light bulbs did Edison fail on before he finally made one? It was something ridiculous, like thousands of light bulbs he failed on
Oh
before
gosh.
he finally got the right combination of filament and gas in the light bulb and everything. And there was no real penalty for him in doing that. I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe his wife was annoyed, like, "Hey, this is the second year you've been working on these. Doesn't work. How about you actually talk to your kids a little bit?"
Right. And I think it has a lot to do with like time too, right? Because you're working on something for so long and it's like, man, I should get it already.
Yeah, yeah,
But there is something to spending that time on something because then you can deep dive into different aspects and really solve some cool things.
yeah, yeah. Hey, you reminded me of one other thing too. This has to do with gamification and the time and new things. Have you played? You've played poker, haven't you?
I have. I'm terrible at it,
That's
but I
okay.
know what it is.
So I'm not real great at it either, but as you go in poker, you learn strategies and things to do, and it's so interesting because in our little neighborhood games, the worst people to play against were the beginners because they had no idea what they were doing, so they didn't follow any convention. But that also meant they won more than they should have because they didn't follow these strict dogmatic rules of poker. Like if you have this kind of hand, you should raise this much, this much. You didn't know if they had a hand or not whenever they did a raise or something. So
Yeah.
again, it goes back to when you start, you're a wide open palette. You can do whatever. But then as you go on, you narrow down, what you want to do, what you're able to do, and kind of forget to be creative again.
Yeah, yeah. People just call that beginner's luck, but it sounds like there's actually something to it because you're not following these strict rules. You're kind of just trying to try new things.
Yeah, and you see sometimes on these poker shows you watch, you see some of these pros get just incredibly mad and incensed when a beginner makes a stupid move. Why would you do that? Why? I can't believe that's the stupidest thing. And I don't understand. And the guy's sitting there like, "But I just won. Like, how are you getting mad at me? I didn't break a rule. I played within the confines of the rules, and I beat you." So yeah, maybe we need
Absolutely.
to forget about some of the strict dogmatic rules and patterns that we have and just try to be more creative. Let's start putting filters on the bottom of our dashboards and on the right side instead of the top and see what
Oh
happens.
goodness. Oh goodness.
Crazy talk.
Oh, this has been an awesome discussion. Are there any other recommendations, words of encouragement that you have?
I would say, if anybody comes up with any for us, please share them back because I think this concept of putting these gamification concepts into what we do as data work can really be helpful and beneficial. But I'm having a tough time putting those two pieces together sometimes. So that's the only thing I'd say. I'd almost ask our viewers to help us a little bit figure it out.
Yes, please do share all of your stories about what you've seen with gamification. Is it working? Is it not working? Anything that you have to share, let us know. And if anybody does have any questions for Tom, where can they find and or follow you?
So right now, I'm kind of just on LinkedIn. That's my main place. You can just find me under Tom Hinkle. I think I'll probably in the link for this video too. That's the best way to get in touch with me. That's where I'm doing most of my social media. Um, I do have exposure to TikTok, but it's mostly just taking it off my kids' phones. So, um, yeah, that's great. I've really enjoyed this too. I'm glad we connected on this and we're able to talk about this a little bit because I think it's a really fun and interesting spin to put on what can sometimes be kind of a dry area, if you will.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again so much for coming on the show with us, Tom. And as always, folks, happy learning.